Awesome. As people join, definitely let us know where you're calling in from. Say hello. Leah, yeah, where are y'all dialing in from?
San Diego.
I'm from Houston, Texas.
Awesome. I am calling in from Denver, Colorado.
My husband used to live there. Like he works for a company called Trimble, and he loves Colorado. He loves Denver.
It's fun. It's a really good spot. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the webinar deck. It's normally very sunny, but this past week it feels a lot like Seattle. Lots of rain, lots of gloom.
It's amazing that I feel Denver is a place that you don't feel cold after it snows.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing actually. Even though you have like a snow that's stack, pile up,
Mhm.
you still feel like okay. Because I
Yeah.
used to live in Toronto, it was like freezing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. It's been like 5 degrees and I was outside in a t-shirt just because when there's sun, it's really nice. Awesome. We'll give it like another minute or so before we kind of jump into the content today, but just want to say thanks for everyone who's joined. And for the new people, let us know where you're calling in from. Hi, Peter. What part of Texas? Texas is quite large, from what I understand. Austin, nice. Nice, beautiful area. All right. So we have a lot to get to, so I think we'll dive in. Let me really quickly share my screen. Cool. Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about transform quality and most specifically evaluations. Some quick introductions on our side. My name is Kevin. I'm on the go-to-market team here at Unstructured. Like I said, I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I am joined by my better halves in Yao and Leah. Yao leads all things transform quality here at Unstructured, and Leah is a lead AI researcher who has done a lot of the work that we support for our internal evaluations. So super grateful that they are here to discuss this topic with y'all today. The agenda for today's call, we'll do a little bit of background on Unstructured, our founding as a company, but we'll spend most of the time talking about what are evaluations, how should employees think about rolling them out across their organizations, and then we'll do a quick demonstration of the product. And then Leah will talk through how we use our internal evaluations to improve the quality of everything that we do. And then the last portion of the webinar, we'll do Q&A for any questions that people submitted or want to ask on the fly. So some housekeeping, chat goes in the chat box. And then if you have specific questions you want us to address, there is another tab for questions. We will be sending a recording of this webinar after the call today. And if you have specific questions or use cases you want to discuss with one of our AI leads, we're happy to set that up. You can book a call on our website. All right. So a little bit of background on Unstructured. We started as an open source product 3 years ago, trying to answer the question, do companies struggle to take unstructured documents like PDFs and convert them into a structured JSON output to plug into AI applications? And you flash forward 3 years, it's been a really wild ride. We have 10,000 paying customers, over 40 million product downloads of our open source product, tons of organizations using our product, and a lot of amazing partners to help us in this mission. So that's our background. Now let's talk about evals. So I want to start really high level. And Leah, since you've done so much work on our own evaluation process, like what is an eval and how does it differ from like a unit test or a benchmark in your experience?
So thanks, Kevin. This is a great question. So in traditional AI, when we talk about eval, it's more like in general, it means like how well a model performs on specific task. For example, if I had trained an NER model, I measure like the precision recall on the entity extraction. But in generative AI world, eval is broader. It could be a lot. It could be compared like different models on same prompt on specific task. It could be measured like the metrics that is beyond the task itself, like hallucination, like process, like successful rate, or even cost. So if I had to summarize it into one sentence, I think it's not just limited to unit tests. It can be benchmarking or end-to-end testing. Basically everything that business cares about.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot there. Glad that we're talking about this today to try to shed some light on it. Awesome. Okay, let me. So Yao, I want to ask you, considering you're responsible for all things transform quality at Unstructured, like how do you think about the benefits of using evals in your day-to-day job?
Sure. So it harkens back to what Leah said last. Eval really includes a lot of stuff. And when we design eval, it forces us to try to understand what problems we're trying to solve. For an eval system to be effective, we want it to be matching exactly to the problem the customers are caring about. So eval helps us to think about those problems and try to quantify those problems so that we can have a better understanding of how to solve it. Another thing about eval is once we have an eval designed, obviously it will help us to focus our efforts on where we fall short. And it helps us to evaluate and to give us a trajectory on how quickly we're improving our our model performances so we know if we are making the right kinds of progress or not. So in summary, eval really has two benefits, I would say in short. One is forcing us to understand what problems we're trying to solve. And second is helps to provide a benchmark for improvements.
Okay. And then here's just kind of a random question. Yeah, you mentioned like the speed of iteration and improvement is important. Do you have any like internal benchmarks you have for how quickly you want to improve your eval sets? Or does it depend on the size of the problem that you're looking to address?
So it really depends on the size of problem we're trying to address. There are some kind of long-term problems we're trying to address using, we are going to plan for multiple sprints for those who are familiar with the sprint system. So a sprint is basically 2 weeks time frame. And for some that's really short term, like hot button topics or really hot fixes, we probably want to iterate even within 1 day. So we need a very responsive eval system. And that goes back to we really need to understand what problem we're trying to solve first before we design that eval, so that when we do need to iterate over a day, we actually have something we can trust. We have something that can really guide us.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Leah, I want to ask you, like, considering all the work that you've done, like, how do we use evals at Unstructured?
Yeah, so we can go to next slide. So we talked about like earlier we talked about like evaluation is becoming like a complex and multidimensional. So at Unstructure, we have like metrics in several dimensions to track the file transformation quality. So so those dimensions include like content, table extraction, structure, and some end-to-end metrics like retrieval accuracy for RAG. So at Unstructured, I'm using content as an example. Like we have several proprietary metrics that we track and then to ensure like we have high transformation quality. And these metrics change because we like Yao mentioned, is constantly evolve. Like as our business progress, we identify issues and we identify like the area we want to monitor, then we will evolve the metrics. So there are three things that like I would like to share. The first thing that we care about for content is CCT, which is clean concatenated text, which really measures how models interpretation aligns with human interpretations. So it combines reading order and text extraction. And we also care about OCR performance, which is how well a model reconstruct the text. And then we also measure hallucination. So hallucination was not something traditional AI would measure, but this is just an example to show that how this things is evolving. And of course, beyond content, we also have dedicated sets for table extraction and structure because those are what our customers really cares about. And later in the demo, I'll show you these metrics in action and how we use them in our day-to-day.
Awesome. Yao, did you want to discuss a little bit about some of the work we've done on like table extraction, or is that best served when Leah gets into the actual demo?
I can give a quick taste of that. So you mentioned about how quickly we sometimes iterate. For example, there was a case where we had to iterate form extraction quickly within a week by quite a lot. And the eval we were having in place basically can help us to measure the content and the key value pair association accuracies. And that's what the customer care about. And we create an eval system to measure that. And we were able to iterate very quickly to improve the system. So again, the problem was in the form context, the customer usually cares about how the key and the values associated each other are placed, those pairs of information, and we evaluate that. We don't care a lot about how exactly the form look like, as long as the order is correct, as long as the key value pair association is correct. So that's an example of running eval that's very specific, tailored to the problem.
I think I know which client you're talking about. Yeah, I remember that week and it was very stressful. Awesome. So I guess like this is a question for both of y'all. Like, what questions should people on this webinar be asking as they start to roll out evaluations internally?
I can get started. So I think the first question is, what problems are we trying to solve? There are a lot of benchmarks out there. They don't necessarily measure how well the problem is being solved. And I think the first hard question we have to ask when designing evaluation is, what problems we're trying to solve? How do we quantify the efficacy of a solution? And once those questions are answered, actually the solution may just jump right out at you. That's the power of designing a very useful eval system. And Leah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so just to follow on like Yao's like question like suggestion, I think it's also a good point for like everyone to review, are the metrics out there, the public metrics are really sufficient for you? Like some of them are so basic, like it may not like be necessarily good to measure the business like problems. And also I guess another important aspect is like what are the data set you're gonna use to eval those like metrics? This is also important.
Awesome. All right. Oh, I gotta get to the right screen. Cool. So I think this is where I pass it over to Leah to do a quick demo of the platform and then show off how we eval the unstructured platform.
Yes, let me grab the right screen share. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see
Okay,
the email. Yep, we got you.
yay. Okay. So this is unstructured interface. Like we build it super easy to use. You come here, you drop your documents, and then you pick the models that you want to use. And then you set a destination, and we will set up the workflow for you automatically. And this is a simple example. Like you drop a document, and then the document is processed. And now you see the JSON output. And then you see that the table here, you actually get HTML output and it's ready for your downstream application right away. So now there's a question, like here, you saw a lot of models we are supporting, and then it's growing. Like whenever there's new models comes out, like the list grows. So how do we make sure like we offer the best in class file transformation to our user? So here's a report. It's an example report that we have like internally. And this report we generated like every week or every day. Like Yao mentioned, it's on demand. It based on our like a task, we will generate this report every day or every week. So in this sample report, I have a data set and it's called minimalistics. And then we have like 3 dimensions in this example. We have content, table structure, and layout, which is the structure metrics I mentioned earlier. So you see that this is the metrics that I mentioned earlier in previous slides for content. And for tables, we have several just for table. They're dedicated for table because we really want to measure how well is our table extraction output results. So you see there are measured content and just both proprietary and the public. So these metrics really help us like guard our internal quality because when we improve our system, we want to make sure there's no regression. And when customer comes in, they have their request, we use these reports for recommendation. So for example, if our customer really cares about table, we come here and look at this snapshot. So this is just a snapshot of the performance on that period. And then because these numbers evolved during that time, we will just look at the report and say, okay, now I think Sonnet 4 is what you're looking for. So you should use Sonnet 4. And if they cares about content, we will use the content page. So this is really how we ensure we deliver high quality file transformation. And this is how the metrics in action in our day-to-day workflow.
So,
I'll pass it to Kevin.
well, I have one question for both of you, and yeah, you might be the best person to answer it, but like, how do we balance the conflict between like focusing only on eval metrics and contrasting that with like the real world performance of these AI systems or products?
That's a good question. So that goes back to evaluation needs to adapt to what the business needs are and to what our customers' needs are. It's very easy to create a metric and forget about it and just let it run and be on autopilot mode to say select the one has the largest number and that's the one. Now that's why in unstructured we constantly actually go back to revisit our eval numbers based on the business, changing business needs. For example, you saw in the page Leah showed there is a CCT, clean concatenated text, that's measuring reading order, and there is adjusted CCT. Why adjusted? Because we learned from some customers that different interpretation of reading order is okay, and we need to account for that. So we readjust the evaluation based on what the business needs are, and to present a new evaluation metric, and sometimes we might create entirely new families of evaluation metrics because the business needs changes. So really, I'd say it's not necessarily considering which one to give, which one to take between evaluation and business needs. It's more about the evaluation needs to be serving the business needs. That's really the good foundation for creating an effective eval system. If we just put eval in abstract in a vacuum, that's not going to help anybody.
Awesome. Oh, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, it's not letting me go. This is the Q&A portion. So we can start taking some questions that people submitted ahead of time. There's actually a great question that ties into what we were just talking about. But like, yeah, Leah, what practical steps can teams take to future-proof their evaluation pipelines as these new LLMs keep hitting the market?
Yeah, so I can start. I think this is also related to the demo that I did earlier. So like at Unstructured, we have like a robust pipeline and the data registry system just to support our evaluation. We have like we continuously like curate data sets, label it, and to ensure they fits our business like demands, like what we want to measure. And then we have pipeline. So like we can enable like which data set that we want to monitor or like evaluate, and then we can set up the metrics that we care about, and then we just have an automation flow. And of course, we have like weekly, like a process that run weekly basis, just to make sure, the metrics don't regress no matter what we do. Like, so I think this give everyone some idea how the eval should be like when you build like a robust eval for future. And because when new model emerge, we will like do like we will support it quickly. So we also want to make sure the model performance is great, and we need this like eval to support like this kind of tiny needs.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. How much time does your team spend curating eval data sets versus actually running and iterating across them?
So we
To
actually
talk
got an
about it?
entire team to curate data sets, and that's separate from the ML research team. And then I'll let Leah talk more
Yeah.
about that.
So we actually like have a labeling team, and then internally we only search for public data set to eval. So we don't really just limit it to our proprietary collected data set. We also look for the benchmarking, the data sets for like OCR benchmark and or like a Omnidoc bench. Those were also included in our like data registry. And we just spend a lot of time because when we see like good data that is so representative for our customer, we also include them in our eval system and our daily process.
Awesome.
But
You
then,
spoke.
sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm not here to steal your thunder, Leah.
Just one thing I think it's also important to note it is that labeling is also important because you want to make sure you're measuring the right thing.
Awesome.
Yeah,
You
and to give
mentioned
to give just a little bit how much time we spend on that. As I said, we have a team that's responsible for labeling and curating the data set. And weekly, we have a review session between the data labeling team and the ML team on labeling questions or labeling interpretations. So we spend quite a lot of time on the data curation, and that's a foundation of evaluation, really.
awesome. Leah, you mentioned OCR, and there was a question in the chat that's like, hey, can you talk a little bit more about OCR? Are you using OCR or any specific LLM models that OCR across the particular document?
Right. So this will be more like Yao's question, but I will definitely answer first and Yao can chime in. So we do have like we include both like traditional OCR and like VLM. They are both supporting like our OCR like text extraction. It just like their usage are in different pipelines. So the traditional OCR was in the high res, and then we also have VLM mode like that will use the VLM for like text extraction.
And
So yeah,
those
Yao, you
different
can
modes have
chime in.
different pros and cons to them. Traditional OCR has strengths in certain areas, but then VLM model, the new generative technology, has strengths in other areas. But one of its cons for generative AI technology, VLM, is, as you can imagine, hallucinations of ARIA token. And that's where the traditional OCR is performing better. So we balance those in different pipelines and based on the customer's needs, recommend different kinds of pipelines to them.
Awesome. Thank you. Michael Moore is asking, are you able to span page breaks with table parsing, multi-page tables like table of context or indexes? I know that this is something I believe your team worked on quite extensively for a while. Yeah, do you have any
Yeah, so
context?
right now, our product is processing page by page. And so if a table crosses 2 pages, it's going to appear on 2 pages. However, there is a chunking system where we try to put contents related to each other together. And in the chunking system, we can put things, group things together. And then lastly to consider is what really is a downstream application. And if we're talking about some downstream to understand table content, put it into LLM, then when it's split into multiple tables versus into one table, doesn't make a huge difference to the downstream LLM. You can simply concatenate both HTMLs and the LLM will be able to understand the content. And Leah, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think it's great. You cover everything.
Thank you, Yao. Let's talk about noisy data. How confident are you that your eval results hold up when you deal with messy data like scanned contracts, tables, or mixed layouts?
Yeah, so we got those in our eval dataset. That's a good thing about eval is we have really noisy, really blurry images in the dataset. And we have specific tags to track them so we know how our system performs on this subset of data. And we can check if there's any regression or which one pipeline is best to recommend to the customer. And I see there is a question about guidance on between selecting parsing strategies. So if you have scanned pages, VLN is really the best strategy to use, for example. It does a much better job than traditional OCR-based pipelines.
So let's do one more question. We got a few minutes left. Let me see here. I think we've answered a few of these. We have someone asked, we are supporting more in healthcare insurance and oil and gas commodity trading, and we see millions or untested docs that need processing. And the format and attribute position is changing. I'd like to understand if there is a way to handle it more dynamically.
So the good news is our pipeline does handle them dynamically. And the technology we use does not rely on the information to be presented at consistent locations on the page. Rather, our system looks for where the information are and then extract them as where they are. And that's why Leah mentioned the CCT. We do measure the reading order accuracy to make sure the information is extracted in the right order at the right place. And this then goes back to our eval data collection. We do have pages that are basically similar kind of data, but presented differently. And we do evaluate that to make sure the system actually is indeed dynamically handling the content rather than just remembering where to look for things.
Awesome. Do we have time for like a rapid fire one last question, Yao? So how do you think about multimodal systems and how do you like define metrics for different like video files or audio transcripts? Do you have like a quick blurb on how you think about that document type?
Yeah, so really it's like depending on the application. Each application will be evaluated differently. For application that, for example, we have text-to-text or image-to-text, those two models. With our text-to-text text-to-text applications, it's a retrieval problem. So we use a retrieval evaluation system to evaluate it. For image-to-text, Leah already showed a lot of different ways we're measuring the extraction accuracy. We currently don't support audio or video on our platform offered to public yet, but that's on our roadmap. And a little bit about the audio is audio problem essentially comes down to transcribing audio into text. So a lot of the same metrics can be applied where the right text information extracted, there's very little or no hallucinated content added into the results. So a lot of the same principle applies.
Okay, thank you for that quick answer to a very complex question, Yao. We have to wrap up. I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined and for the great questions. And we will be here, I think, next week, but we're going to do these pretty consistently. So let us know if you have questions that you want us to tackle on these webinar series. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks.